Hi, and welcome along to the final stage of the sweet pea grow along for a little while. Now, by now, if you haven't already bedded out your sweet peas because you winter sowed them, your spring sowing sweet peas should look something a little bit like this. Really solid, stocky plants grown in their toilet tubes, which you can see have started to completely biodegrade and fall apart. Now, if your sweet peas don't look like this, don't worry, there are many things you can do. If your sweet peas are drawn and leggy, you must make sure you get them out of the greenhouse, get them out of the house and into the natural light and into the natural elements. So move them outside for the daytimes and start hardening them off. That is a little bit of a dancing act between bringing them in and out of wherever they may be getting too much heat. Start cooling them off a little bit and slow them up. Pinch out the tips. These ones, as you can see, have been pinched out already once and they've sent out several nice strong shoots. This one here, I'm going to pinch this one out again, take that away, leaving 2, 3 or 4 true leaves. Those are the ones with the tendrils, as we've talked about before. That is going to now send out 2 more shoots, so I've doubled that. Don't think by pinching them out you're going to actually lose blooms. You're actually gaining blooms. You're gaining shoots every single time you pick them out. So your sweet peas should look something like this, and they are now ready to bed out. Right, I've given these a little bit of a hit of iron about a week ago. So if you're following my stages one by one, you should be working around a week behind me now. When bedding out from now, mid of April, all the way through to the end of May is perfect time to get your sweet peas out, hardened off and into the ground. So give them a hit of iron, a liquid foliar feed, around a week before you bed them out, and don't water them the day that you actually want to bed them out. You want this compost to remain quite stable during that process, and if you make this too wet, that toilet tube is going to completely fall apart and you're going to damage this lovely root structure. Right, so moving on to actually physically bedding them out. As I've talked about before, sweet peas are really hungry and they are very thirsty. So the ground here where I grow my sweet peas was mulched around 4 weeks ago to a depth of around 4, 5, 6 inches. Was really good quality. This is actually Eco Mix that I've been talking to you about over the last couple of months. That's Eco Mix there, that's feeding my soil and adding lots of organic humus matter to the soil and feeding them. So if you haven't done that, that's something you need to crack on and do. The soil that you grow sweet peas in needs to be really rich. So you can do that either with good quality homemade compost or leaf mulch, well rotted horse manure that needs to be 2 to 3 years old, or spent mushroom compost. A little tip from myself as well. I'm growing these on obelisks. As you can see, if I turn the camera slightly, you can also see that I have wigwams that I build out of hazel, and I'm going to take you and show you something else in a minute. But what I wanted to talk to you about is you need something at least 8 foot tall to grow your sweet peas up. Anything shorter than that, your sweet peas are going to outgrow the structure. They'll get all floppy and heady at the top and they just won't have anywhere else to go. Sweet peas quite naturally will grow 8 to 10 feet in a season, and you really want to give them the best chance possible. So something at least 8 feet high, 1 or 2.4 meters in height for them to grow up. I'm going to turn the camera a little bit as well so you can see what I've done here. I'm just pointing that down for you. In this obelisk, you can see that I've actually hollowed out the center here. I've created a little reservoir. All I've done is simply scoop the topsoil back and out of the way. Now, I've talked about this last year, that the technique of actually doing that means that I now have somewhere to focus my watering and focus my feeding. So when it comes to feeding once a week, if it's not a foliar feed, if it's something high in nitrogen, I want to give them a liquid feed, I can deposit all of the feed into that hole there, and that's going to focus the watering and make sure that stays within the root systems of the plants. Now you can see with the structure I've done behind me with the hazel stick, I've done a channel down through the middle, again somewhere for me to focus that watering and just make sure that I've got somewhere to aim that, very much like they would do in a hot climate where they have problems keeping water on the surface of the soil. It just gives there somewhere to focus that down into the actual soil itself. Last tip, if you're growing sweet peas in pots, now this is a really difficult thing to deal with. I know loads of people are giving you tutorial videos on growing sweet peas, but so many of the pots I'm seeing are far too small. This is a 120 litre pot. If I was growing sweet peas in a pot or barrel, I wouldn't be using anything smaller than this. This is a large plastic tub that a tree that I bought a long time ago came in. I use this around the garden for weeding. But if I was growing sweet peas in a pot, this is the size container that I would use. 120 litres. It's approximately 20 inches across and 20 inches deep. Anything smaller than this, I'm afraid, is simply not big enough for sweet peas. They are far too thirsty, they are far too hungry. Now, other things with your pot. I've seen loads and loads of videos of people talking about adding drainage and making sure you have adequate drainage. Throw all of that out the window with sweet peas. They are so hungry, they are so thirsty. If I was growing these in a pot, and I have done this in other years, I'm going to make sure that I've got a saucer large enough for this huge pot to fit in, so you have a reservoir of water. I'm also not going to put any crocks in the bottom of this pot whatsoever. I'm going to take that away because that's probably echoing into the sound. So no crocks into the bottom of that pot. I'm then going to line that, if I was growing in a pot, with 4 or 5 sheets of newspaper. Now you're probably thinking that's a strange thing to do, Ben, but what that will do is that will slow the water down as it goes through the pot and not mean it goes straight out the bottom. Anything you can do to make sure that the soil in the pot itself stays really, really wet, and all of those nutrients that normally get leached through when you're growing in pots actually stay there and just slow down for a second. So I would suggest you put at least 4 or 5 layers of newspaper into the bottom of the pot. Of course, that's going to biodegrade over the next couple of months, but it will just slow the watering down and make sure it doesn't just drain straight out the bottom and then it is caught by the saucer. Right, potting media. You do not want to scrimp on the potting media if you're growing sweet peas in pots. Once again, they are incredibly thirsty, they are incredibly hungry. They're going to need something with some real meat behind it. I would go straight up to blending a John Innes number 3, which is a loam-based compost by John Innes. That's good quality topsoil, and I would mix that with a really, really good quality, fully organic, peat-free compost. Again, I've been known to mix John Innes number 3 with the Eco Mix from Eco Sustainable Solutions and use that in the pot. Really, really strong, really, really meaty, good quality compost, completely peat-free. That is the only media I would grow in pots with sweet peas. So once again, bedding out time now. Your sweet peas should look something along like this. Nice stocky plants. I always bed mine out at the very, very end of the day. You don't want to water these, so you don't want to put these out on a warm day. Today has been about 17 degrees, so very, very warm, and you don't want to be chucking water on these when they're in distress. So I normally tend to do it just as the sun sets. It's about 7 o'clock now here in the New Forest, so these are going to go in the ground now. I'm going to water them in so they get settled in overnight. They've obviously been hardened off over the last couple of weeks. Into the ground, set them around 12 inches apart, pick them out, and if you haven't done already, give them a really good foliar feed. Hollow out in the center of your obelisks or your supports or in your bean cane structures to give you somewhere to focus your watering. And if you're growing in pots, all laws of drainage go out the window. You're looking at trapping as much moisture in that pot as at all possible. Make sure you've got a nice big saucer underneath of it, something that's at least 120 litres, 20 inches by 20 inches, and line that with several pieces of newspaper, and do not scrimp on the compost. I wish you a really successful growing season with your sweet peas, and I will check in with you in the next few weeks, probably about the end of May. I'll probably need some contact from myself again. But if you have any queries or questions, don't hesitate to drop me a comment, like, follow and share. And of course, if you're not growing along with me real time, don't forget to save the post because you can come back to it a little bit later. I wish you all the best. I'll see you very soon.